All right. Aloha, everyone. Michelle Melendez with Blossom Inner Wellness and StandTogetherHawaii.com. This interview is gonna blow your mind about if you have a business, you're gonna be really glad that you're watching this because I'm here with Mike Colomb of the Renegade Nation, and we have some things to share with you. Welcome, Mike.
How you doing? Pleasure to be here. Thanks so
Um,
much.
Thank you for joining me. So you have been helping people with their businesses and going into private membership associations let's talk about that. Why did you create Renegade Nation? What is it and how does it help businesses?
It's a long story, but I'll tell it to you and we'll abbreviate it a little bit. Okay, so back in the beginning of, well, actually before COVID, yeah, my wife, she kind of led a charge with vaccination, and we live in California, and all the
So I just have to say we have to be careful about the C word and the V word because I got booted. I got booted for a whole week because somebody
no
was, yeah,
kidding.
anyway. And they
That's
did like
crazy.
two sentences. So we'll just say
Oh
C
my
and
gosh.
V. We'll go
CNV.
like this. Yeah,
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. So,
go ahead.
so she started working with the vaccination things that were, for kids in California. We have some horrendous laws going in place, and she started protesting a little bit with some other people and doing things, and then the C hit, and we, during the lockdowns and the closures, we protested that, and she did really hard, and she got right away. She started a group of a lot of people and started hitting it hard with the county, and we spent a bunch of time and money helping businesses stay open. And we got all of our friends together and we would support these groups and people that wanted to stay open. So we did that all the way through during the whole event, right? All the way to the end, and we still do today. But during this piece of it, and actually prior to that, Vanessa, my wife, had been asking me for a few years to leave California, to get out of California, mostly because of the child vaccinations that were coming along for schools and all that kind of stuff. And I have a bunch of kids that live here and a bunch of grandkids, and I've lived here for a long time, and it just was always no. And then finally, a few things hit in our life where I said, "Okay, honey, I think I'm ready." So we took and we started, going across the country. For 3 years, we spent a month per trip in our RV, traveling across the country, experiencing new towns, new communities, people, and we basically we got into South Dakota, and we went on this property, and we got to the top of this big old huge ranch, and it was like I knew that was it. So we bought it right there on the spot. We said we're taking it, and we came home, put our ranch up for sale, started packing our stuff. And in about 2 months, Vanessa comes to me and goes, "Honey, we need to build a grocery store." And I'm thinking, yeah, cool. We're moving to this really cute little town called Belfouche in South Dakota, and they need a grocery store there. And she goes, "No, I mean here." And it's like my head's spinning now because I'm a contractor at that point, and I wanted to retire. I was done doing everything. Yeah, we sell our ranch. I completely retire. We move out there, and life's great. And she convinced me to stay, and it really it took a lot for me to do that and to get to that point. And I was severely bummed out for quite a while, and kind of going through the motions. And we started our grocery store in this thing called the Private Membership Association that I had no experience with. Never saw it, heard of it, or anything at all. And Vanessa actually brought it to me and told me about it. So I called the guy who did them, and we started getting on the phone and going through some trainings, and I went through some materials, and I went heavy into it for about 2 weeks and decided, okay, this is for us. This is good. I was tired of the county's garbage, and that's part of the reason why we were getting ready to leave. And so I said, okay, that's great. So we set up the PMA. We opened the business up. Within 30 days, we had 750 members in our grocery store, and it was booming and thriving, and it was an amazing event. But that's Vanessa's thing, and I'm still here contracting, which I was mentally done with a couple years before that point. And I'm just thinking, this is God, this is not what I want to do. What am I supposed to do? And I kept praying about it, and then basically one day he just said, "Hey, dummy, why don't you start helping people with PMAs?" And so that's what I did. I just started. I called the guy that helped us, and he said, "Awesome, I've been wanting you to do this." And so I got into it, and I just started heavily going into constitutional law, into bar law, into basically our court systems, understanding the processes of how we're protected. Reading all the Supreme Court precedences, getting a bunch of books, and just filling my head full of this stuff. And I started off really slow and kind of went in mostly in little mom and pop stores across the country, some here in town, and then we went through a medical event here at home, and spent some time in the hospital, and came home. And then the next probably a week after that, somebody we know from our town went to that same hospital, and he basically put him on remdesivir, and he died. And then with that, they wouldn't let his wife in because she didn't have a shot, and then she had to say goodbye to him on a Zoom call. And at that point in time, I said, no, this is not going to happen. And I probably I focused really hard on the medical community. Talked to about probably, I don't know, 3,000 doctors in the next month and a half, 2 months. Some of the calls that have 300 doctors on from all over the country. I'm talking about what we're doing and how we're going to do it. And so that's what we did. And that's basically what we started as. And today, I've got almost 1,000 PMAs in place across the country from every discipline you could possibly imagine in life. I've got brain surgeons and all the way down to, a mom and pop, little stores and little farm stands and stuff like that, and everything in between. So it's been a major, wonderful experience for us to be able to do that. I've learned a whole bunch in that process, in helping people across the country. Made a lot of good friends that we now consider friends, and that we just started and met with PMAs and helped them through that. And we've expanded our knowledge base and our offerings to include private trusts, which we do. And that's probably one of my favorite things in life to see and to do and to have operate, because it gives us true freedom as well. And then we offer what's called a revocation of election, which is we actually take people and we can make you a non-taxpayer, which is weird,
yes,
right?
I've shared with people about that. I love that. Oh my
Pretty
gosh. Okay, this is great. Wow, where do I start? So first of all, everybody, I actually hired Mike to do my PMA. So I'm Blossom Inner Wellness. I'm not, it is a private membership association. So let's start right there. Why would somebody want to do a PMA?
Yeah, you bet. No, that's a great question, and that we get asked a lot. And it's basically, it's pretty simple in the whole piece of it, because do you like to be controlled by somebody who shouldn't be controlling you? That's one of the big pieces of it. Do you like overtaxation and over meddling in your business? That's another piece of it. There are people that need and want that interaction between the city, county, and state and federal government. That's how they operate in life. Fortunately, I think that most business owners are in a position as a business owner because they somewhere along the way decided they didn't want to have that interaction with people telling them how they can operate their business or how they operate. So they open their own business and they thrive with that. So basically what it does for us is when you have, great example. I've got and I'll give you a couple examples. I have a school system, that, is like school is a statutory word, right? So we call them assemblies or communities or academies, stuff like that. So I have this academy that's in Colorado, and they came to me and said, hey, we have a church, and in the church we have Sunday school, and in our county, in where we're at, we're allowed to have the church and we're allowed to have Sunday school, but it's not zoned for school. So what can we do? So then this church has been there for 50 years, and they've been wanting to be a school for so many years, it's ridiculous. And they heard about me, called me, we talked about it. The neat thing is, when we're doing a private membership association, we're removing the jurisdiction of the public. So as you're walking down the street and you're looking at every business as you walk down the street, those are all owned by people, but they're publicly ran. And what I mean by that is that it's inside of an LLC or a corporation. And then you have a public entity, a business license, a permit, a conditional use permit, a county health department permit. You have all these governmental entities that want to be in your business for two reasons. They want to control you and they want your money. That's it. Other than that, they don't have any existence or use. We don't have any need for them in a private membership association. And when we go in the private, we remove the jurisdiction from them. And a great example, you're driving down the road and you're in California, and then you go into Nevada and you're cruising to Nevada, and this highway patrolman pulls you over from California, and he comes up and he starts to write you a ticket, and you look at him and say, dude, we're in Nevada, you have no jurisdiction. And that's exactly what it is. They don't have jurisdiction where we are today in the private. And that's backed up by basically our Constitution tells us that, right? Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution says that we have the ability to privately contract as much as we want to, period, without the authority of the government or our neighbor. So they have no interference requirements from them to be able to do anything with us. We have so many Supreme Court precedences that it's unbelievable on how many times the Supreme Court's come out and said that we working in the private domain is like another world. There's there are two law systems, one for the public, one for the private. We live inside this area, have protection, that we don't need a conditional use permit. The zoning requirements and laws that they have that exist are for the public, not for the private. So all this meddling goes away. You don't have to have a conditional use permit. When we open our grocery store, it's like, no, I think I don't need to have the county come in and look at my temperatures, my refrigeration. I'm an adult. I think I can handle it on my own, right? We all know what's right and what's wrong. And it's like, if you're going to open a business, if it's wrong, guess what? The business isn't going to thrive very long, is it? People are going to come in and see that you're a mess and they're going to leave because they're used to things being clean and done right. So you do those things on your own. We don't need them telling us how to do those things. So I think that's a really big, important part. And when you get into the medical community, that's, I think, the strongest, hardest thing to do, because not as a PMA, but as being in that community, because you're touching people and you're working with people and they think that they own everybody, right? And they think that, the FDA has come out and said specifically to us as citizens, we have the right to tell you what you can eat and what you cannot eat. They actually think that they can do that. So,
yeah,
they
they love to believe that they have lots of authority over us.
do.
What I love about your PMA is on your website, and this is the renegadenation.org, and I'll leave the link in the description. It says you can legally practice your profession in a properly formed First, Fourth, Fifth, Ninth, 10th, and 14th Amendment private membership association. So these private membership associations that we have, they're rights given to us by God, but they're also protected by the First, Fourth, Fifth, Ninth, and 10th and 14th Amendment of our Constitution.
Yep,
Is that right?
I'm taken back, and I think I left one of the documents on there that haven't changed. I definitely changed my membership application and the rest of them. That we removed the 14th Amendment, and the reason being is that as you get further into constitutional law,
that's right. Yeah, the citizen, U.S. citizen.
The 14th Amendment that put people back into slavery. It really did.
Yes.
And instead of, I don't want civil rights. I want my God-given rights and my constitutional protections. That's what I want. I don't want you to tell me what my rights are and what they're not, and they don't have the ability to do that. If we're in our sovereignness, right? If we are operating as a human, as a living person, they don't have any authority on us.
So basically, I have an online business. My business has been online for quite a while, and any business can do this, right? Yeah.
There's a few
what is
where it's hard.
Oh, go ahead.
There's a few instances that are hard. If your only customer is the government, they're probably not going to sign to your private membership association. So then we have a couple workarounds that make that work for it. If you are selling on Amazon, Amazon's not going to sign the agreement, so we have a workaround for that. But you can effectively make almost any business into that, no problem.
And then the mandates, which again, you guys, I've said this before, mandates are not laws. In order to have a law, legislation has to get together. Legislative bodies create laws, not governors. So mandates they were basically suggestions, and people were acting like they were the law. But if it was a law, it still wouldn't have affected the private membership association. Is that correct?
That is correct. And even what we call laws, there's really only like 3 laws. That's it. All the rest of them are statutes, codes, and regulations, and that's it. That's all they are. All the things that they
what are those
in the books, they're not laws. The laws are basically you can't trespass on people, and you can't cause physical harm on people. That's basically it. And that's what it all boils down to in common law. And when you look at their laws, they're just things for control and money. It all boils back down to control. That's their biggest desire is control. And because they know money's coming from that point.
And then you also have on your website, again, the renegadenation.org, and again, it's in the description. It says understanding the difference between mala per se and mala prohibita crimes. These are crimes. It isn't. So what are these crimes?
Well, one's horrendous crime, one that's actually murder or rape or things that are really, really bad, that whether you did it in a private and or in public, it's still going to be treated the same. And then the other one is where you can do things, and I'll give you a perfect example, right? So we can practice a medical facility without a medical license given to us by the state, because that medical license isn't your degree. That's not how you earned it. They don't have the right to give it to you. They think they do. They made themselves do that. And it wasn't until Rockefeller came along and made that happen for control and money. right?
Correct. Absolutely.
So that all those things that they do and did were all for controlling money, and they're not necessary. And we have plenty of Supreme Court statutes that say that we don't need to do that when we're in the private. When you remove somebody from the public and put them in the private, it's a private contract that excludes the government's control and the government's jurisdiction. They're gone.
That's so awesome. So before people can actually do business with you, they do have to sign an agreement to be part of your membership association.
Yeah, that's correct. That's why we run it, and we do that. And I'll tell you, I'll give you an example of why we do that. But we do that to pull them into the association that differentiates them from everybody else, right? Because the other people haven't signed, and when they sign, they're part of that. Whether you say they are or not, but when they sign it, then now you have proof. And here's a great reason why. We were opened the store within 2 days or 3 days. On the third day, the county of Nevada County in California came to close down our store. They trespassed onto our property. There's a sign on the front of the gate that says, if you work for a government entity and you're here on government business, you're trespassing. Period. And
nice.
So when in trespassing laws in the United States, it's twofold. If somebody comes on your property, the sheriff won't arrest them if that's the first time, unless they've been warned. And that sign is what's called being trespassed. So that's the part of it. So then as soon as they've already been trespassed by going past that sign, and then when they come on the property, you tell them you're trespassing, you call the sheriff, and the sheriff's job is to come out and arrest them. I don't care if it's the mayor of your town, his job is to come and arrest that person to remove them from your property. So that's what happens. And they'll do that. And the county knows that. So the county comes out, and they had 3 people come to the store. I was in the Bay Area in California working. My wife and one of her friends were at the store. And this lady comes up and starts, talking, and well, who's the owner? And they knew who it was. They knew Vanessa because she'd been in all kinds of different meetings at the county, harassing them for the most part for doing the things they were doing, trying to get them to change and showing the lies and the flaws and what they were trying to do. So the lady says, well, I need to talk to you. And Vanessa, look, she walked over and she goes, are you a member in here? And the lady says, no. And she goes, well, I don't have time to talk to you. If you want to sign up and be a member, then I'll talk to you. Which made the lady even a little bit more irritated, but that's the way it goes. And then the lady says, well, you need to sign this. And it was a cease and desist. And Vanessa looked at her and laughed. She goes, I'm not signing that. She goes, you have to. And she goes, no, you don't. And then she told her that she was a PMA. And she goes, the only thing that has to happen right now is you have to leave my property or I'm going to have you arrested. And then when they heard that, they left, obviously, because they know that they would get arrested. So she took the letter, the cease and desist, and wrote returned for fraud and basically returned for fraud to the county. And she sent it back to the county. They understood where they were in position wise with us and that we weren't going to play their game and let them intimidate us. So they took and we own a winery at this point, and we have a license at a winery. We make wine and we sell it to actually we sold it to us personally, and then we personally sold it to the grocery store. And the grocery store sold the wine, and we don't have a license in the grocery store. Why don't we have one? Because we don't need one, because we're in the private. Okay, we did this on purpose, knowing that it would put us in court. And my intention on that court piece of it was to be able to set a precedence for other businesses around the country to be able to stand up and say, hey, there's a court precedence right here that says that we can do what we're doing. And that was our intent for it. So 3 days, they came and attacked us. A week later, they put a complaint into the state of California to the Alcohol Beverage Control. And within a couple of weeks, we had a guy at our door. And with the sting operation, he's pretending like he's going to buy it. He's a new neighbor moving into Penn Valley. And, a 45-minute conversation with my wife about, him moving here and his wife, and he wants a bottle of wine for her. And so Vanessa told him right at the door, it's like, this is a private membership association. And you need to sign our membership agreement before you're allowed to buy anything. And he said, yeah, no problem. So he goes through it, gets a bottle of wine, signs the membership, pays the $25. It leaves, comes back in 2 weeks, does it all again. And then we get a letter from the county saying we need to go to court. So the county, and most counties do this, the DA's office sent us a letter in the mail. And in there, it says you need to show up for court on this date. And if you don't, then we might put a warrant out for your arrest. And don't bother calling us and asking us why. And I'm not making this up, and I'm telling you verbatim of what it said. Don't bother calling us and asking us why, because we won't tell you. It's right in the letter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I knew what it was for, and I really didn't care because this is what I'd set up to do anyway. So I go to court, and it was right during the middle of shutdowns. Nobody can go in the court. Or, no, you have to go in with a mask, and I don't wear a mask. my wife doesn't wear masks, my children don't wear masks. So we wouldn't go into court. So we did it at the porch on the steps of there. And we had like 50 people there with us to support us. And this judge gets on there and he's a super nice guy. And we're talking, and I told him, he said, you need to sign this paper. And I said, well, first of all, you guys need to explain to me why I'm here. And he goes, well, why are you here? And I go, because I got a letter. And I told him what it said. And he goes, and he was appalled. And he goes, oh my gosh. And he goes to the bailiff, he goes, come over here. And he goes, take this down to him and give this to Mr. Cologne and his wife. So he brings it down and he looks at it. And we're still on the Zoom call with him. And he says, he brought down another paper and he just signed. I said, no, I'm signing anything. And he goes, well, you have to. And I go, no, I don't. I'm not going to. And he says, well, okay, hang on, give me a minute. So he says, and he sends another guy down with another letter. And he goes, well, I need you to sign this one here. And I said, I looked at it, I said, I'm not signing this. And he goes, you have to sign it. You have to sign one of them. And I go, no, I don't. And I wasn't trying to make him mad. And I told him, I'm not trying to make you mad. I'm just not signing your stuff. And then so he takes a break. He leaves his office and he's in his cubicle or in his room now. He's not in the courtroom. And the DA the bailiff comes down with another paper, and it's what's called a own recognizance. And an own recognizance, I'm reading right on there. What happens in an own recognizance in OR is you're actually giving them the authority of you, like you're already guilty, almost like you're putting yourself in their control. And so the bailiff had to go get him out of his office. Came back in the courtroom. We get back on Zoom, and I looked at it and I laughed. I started laughing. And I go, this is the worst one you give me. There's no way in the world I'm going to sign this document. And he leans forward and goes, Mike, we need to know that you're going to come back for the next court date. And I go, why don't you just tell me that? I'm telling you right now, I'll be here. I was here today. I was invited by a stupid letter that said, don't bother asking why I'm going to be here. I go, now I know what I'm doing. It's like, just give me a date and I'll tell you I'll be here and I'll be here. And he goes, oh, okay. So he gave me a date. We came back. It was a different judge in there at that point in time. Oh, and at the end of this message, and the OR, the first thing in it says that you have to obey all laws. And I'm sitting there talking. So I lean forward, and I got closer to the Zoom thing, and I go, oh, by the way, Judge, I will obey all the laws. And he leans forward in his desk and he goes, Mike, he goes, everyone should always obey all the laws that are lawful. And he said that. I said,
I like this guy.
I hope he's my judge all the way through. Unfortunately, he wasn't. He left.
So before we go forward, what's the difference between a law, and lawful? Let's share people what that is.
Okay, so
those are two different things, everybody.
Lawful, basically God's laws. We're going back to the common
God's laws.
God's laws. And then the law is all the garbage that they've made up in between.
Is the things that the people write that we're supposed to follow, which are not, they may or may not be God's laws.
They're
so that's what this guy knows his stuff. I love it.
Right. Like
awesome.
A speed limit on the road. That's not God's law. It's not. It has nothing to do with it. It's not a law. It's something that they put in there. It's a statute, regulation or code.
Yes.
Okay. So we leave, we come back the next time when we got a different judge. And then this DA that they appoint us is just, she's a monster. And it's actually entertaining to see how she acts. It was unbelievable how she acted. And then she goes through it for a while. And at this point in time, I hired an attorney, and I've got an attorney there. And then I've already started common law and bar law studies, right? I'm taking classes in both things, and I'm increasing my knowledge on it. And we go through this attorney, and we're in with her for a year and a half. She does nothing. I'm over $10,000. We've been in court like 3 times for half an hour, and she's building this big old huge book that means nothing. It doesn't matter at all. It has no information whatsoever in it. That is
such intimidation. Intimidation.
It's all about extraction at this point. Once you get in court, it's extraction. And most attorneys, they're extracting money from you, and to make it longer, so the judge can extract money for you for the court and a whole bit, right? For the DA and all the garbage.
Because it's all a business, everybody. The court is a business to make money off of you for your fear.
I'm glad you're pointing that out. So we finally went through this. We're in court one day. I fired my attorney right there on the spot. And the DA, she kind of snickered. And then the judge goes, okay, well, you're allowed to do that. But you're going to go up against an experienced district attorney who is a prosecutor, who's been doing this for many years, who had many years of training to do this. And I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, no problem. I think I can handle this. And because they're not going to know what hit them, because they're practicing the law of man, not the law of God, and not the Constitution. So we get in this, and the judge, which is funny, it's my right to do this. I know it's my right to do this. But then the judge throws in this little thing. Well, I get to decide whether you get to do this at all or not. It's like, no, you don't.
What?
No, she
Oh,
actually
yeah.
said that. She actually said that.
Wow.
Whether I get to do that or not, no, you don't. It's my choice, and I get to do that. And if you don't give me that right, I'll take it to the next court now. We'll appeal it and we'll go to the next court now and throw you out of the way. So when you go into court, a superior court in California or another state, that first level court is just a kangaroo court. It's not. It's an inferior court. It's the lowest court we have, and the objection that they want to keep you there. They want to keep you there 100%. They want to fine you there and keep you there and get everything tried there. And the actual, when you're doing anything on Constitution, you need to go past that court into a real court, that goes up. And actually, you're probably never really going to be able to get a real court. Even in the Supreme Court, you're going through. It's not going to be a real court where you have, the way it's supposed to be set up. First of all, after I did that, we went through it. We left, came back for the next court date. We did that several times. Stupid little things in between. I wrote up basically, they had to actually charge me properly, because one of the things that they never did was I had no due course on anything, right? They never reached out to me properly. I was never subpoenaed to come to court properly. All the things that they did were illegal. I showed up and did those things and got in that program, but they were never done properly. So what I did was, and I wrote a motion to dismiss for lack of due process, and then also for basically lack of jurisdiction. And then it was a pretty good size. I put in about 20 different Supreme Court precedences that showed that I was correct in what my assumptions were, and gave them to the court, and gave them to I stopped by the DA's office, handed it to her. And then when I handed it to her, I gave her another page that wasn't what I gave to the court. And this page basically says, you need to watch out, because if you come after me unconstitutionally, which is what you're doing, I'm gonna burn you. I'm gonna charge you with all kinds of stuff, and I'm gonna sue you. And I didn't need to give that to the judge, because she wasn't the one that was coming after me. It was the DA. So then we get to court, and the DA goes, well, the motion to dismiss that you got was different than the one I got, because I had this extra letter attached to it. And I said, time out. I said, that letter was for you specifically, and it was not attached to the motion to dismiss. It was not part of it. And then so the judge, and my first thing, and my very first comment to this lady was, excuse me, I don't even know why I'm here. You guys never did anything. There's no due process. You guys haven't done anything correct. There's nothing there. And then she dismissed it. So now she takes and she looks at the DA, and the DA says she got a different motion to dismiss. And she goes, Mr. Colomb, there's a due process that has to happen in this court. You have to hand deliver, you have to deliver and serve the court and the DA's office properly. And I looked at her and I laughed, and I go, kind of like what you guys did to me, right? Because they didn't do that. They never processed that.
Yeah, exactly.
At all. And I said, how's that even right? And I looked at it and I said, I'm going to appeal this case. And then she goes, you have every right to. And then she looked at the DA and she goes, well, what did you think about the motion to dismiss? And then the DA stands up and she goes, well, actually, he recites a bunch of laws that we don't use anymore. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
And the judge looked at her and she goes, yeah, I kind of agree. And I start laughing again. And I go, who are you guys to say that those laws that are put down by the highest court, which you're a lower
those are
court,
that's the precedent of what they're supposed to follow.
Those are in there. And they said, well, we just don't, they're really old. We just don't use those anymore. And I said, I'm going to appeal this case 100%. And I said objection as soon as she said that. And I said, I'm going to appeal this case. And she says, you have every right to. So we have the next court date set up. We go to the next court date, and it's a different judge. This lady's gone, and she was supposed to be our judge all the way through. And it's a different judge.
She backed out.
So I'll tell you what happened. She didn't back out. They threw her out. They removed her and put somebody else in place. And so because of what they're going to do. So we go to court. We're there, and there's a guy that's in the audience. Just there was only one person there, one guy in the audience, and you could tell he worked for the state. You could tell he was an employee for the state. And so we get up there, and she calls us up. We're talking to her, and she asked, have the two of you ever got together and tried just to amicably work this out? And I go, no, we haven't. I've talked to her before, and I'm more than happy to do that. But all I would require is for her to write me an apology letter and then dismiss the case. And the DA she lost it right there on the spot. And she just lost it. And the judge looked at me and looked at her, and she goes, well, that's probably not going to happen. And then I said, yeah, obviously not. And so then she said a few things, and then she leans forward and she looks at the DA, and then she looks at me, and she goes, She goes, but I'm going to throw it out. And now the DA just lost it. She was just uncorked, and it was very humorous. I wish I had a camera to film it, and in her reaction, in her little temper tantrum that she threw. And then the judge leaned forward again, and she looked at her and she goes, I don't need your permission. This is what I'm doing. And that's it.
Nice.
And then she threw another little fit, and then it was over. So what happens, and I was told this was going to happen before we even started. When you go against the court and you show that you're not going to back down, and you let them know that you're going as basically as a human being, not as a corporation, because that's what they look at as corporations. We're all money to them as a corporate entity.
Yes.
All that where people, it says right in there definitions, people are corporations, and then corporations are people. When you look back and forth, it's stupid. When you go with the Constitution and Supreme Court precedences with you, with the Constitution, that are all constitutionally based, they can't handle it. And what they didn't want to do, because we were pushing, we were like 4 days from picking our jury when this judge threw it out, because she was told to go and replace that other lady, and she was told to tell them, or to tell us, that she was removing it from court. They just swept it under the door like it never happened. It's gone. And they do this because they don't want that court case jury trial precedence telling the rest of the United States that I did this and they backed down, or we won. They don't want that win. So in my mind, I wanted the court, I wanted that trial, I wanted that whole process to be able to show the country, but we did it without it, and other people can do without it too, right? And it's about standing up for your rights, telling them that you're not going to put up their garbage, and then putting the foot down and saying no, going to do it.
That's it. It's not complying, and it's having the courage to go the distance, because we had a school that was a private membership association school, and the school board came in and started to sue them, and they said, you can't, we don't recognize private membership associations, and they were going to charge them a $50,000 fine. And then, so instead of going to court, which I feel they should have done, and stood up for their rights, they actually the fee came down to $5,000, and they paid that and closed the school, which was,
that makes me sad.
I know, I was like, this is what they're gonna fight us. They're gonna test us. They're gonna test us. How much do you know about your rights?
Yeah,
and that's part of the game.
I never heard about that. I wish I could have helped them. I wish they reached out to me. I would have helped them. Yeah, we have, out of the almost 1,000 PMAs we put in place in the last 3 years, I've only had about 20, probably 26 different businesses being attacked by the city, county, or state. Nobody ever by federal at all. I've never heard of a person or a business being attacked by the federal government for being a PMA, and or even being basically a nonprofit PMA. Not one time.
And this was an attack by the school board. The school board sued them.
The school board has no authority, and I would just
no authority, no jurisdiction, no authority.
Yes, and that's
so.
Here's part of the problem, okay, with this. And when some people think that when you have a PMA, and I get people ask me this all the time, so now nobody can bug you. Somebody can bug you.
They're going to bug, yeah.
Because you have a PMA and you're operating the private doesn't mean that you're not going to get outside influence trying to come in and shut you down. In fact, it might even more people want to do that, because they're threatened by what you're doing, especially a school board. They lose their power. Right here we are back in the power. That's what they want, is power. I've got 26 different people that have been attacked by city, county, or state. And I operate in a separate service that I do, and it's basically a constitutional legal advisement. And we write letters to that entity. No one that I've helped so far has had to go to court. And actually, now take that back. Somebody was already in court, and they went to court a few more times with it, but we got them cleared. And there's basically, you deal with that entity by itself, and you put them in contract. And this is contract law. And that's how it works. So basically, think about if you had when I got a credit card and you ran it up to $10,000, you never paid a payment within a certain amount of time, you're going to get a subpoena from a court and an official document stating that you have 30 days to dispute it, and or basically you're guilty, and they're going to, they can lien your property, lien your wages and all that kind of stuff. So it's the same thing we do to them. We do the same exact thing. So when you don't respond to that letter, it's willful neglect. So we use contract law and their willful neglect to put them in a contract and basically tie them up in little knots and force them to be able to back off, or they're going to get sued for a lot, right? And so we can do the same thing to them as they do to us. We do that, and it's been effective 100% of the time when we've gone through that whole process. So that's what I would have recommended those people doing, putting those other people and turning that table on them. You know what?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't recognize the school board.
Exactly, exactly. Because they're not, they have no jurisdiction. They have no legal authority to even have a conversation with them about that. So
Yeah.
that was, but I just want to tell everybody, if you have a business, if you want, you don't have to follow these laws that were created by man. We are not under man. We are not under the government. We are under God. And it
Yeah.
goes God, people, government, and the government has forgotten that because they're, in my opinion, they are satanic evil demons that are running the country and thinking that they can do mandates and all of this stuff. And this is a way that if you have a business and you want to get out of the system, which you have a right to do because you are under God, this is a way to do it. And you can contact Mike at the Renegade Nation.org, and this link is in the description. Mike, is there anything else you'd like to share? Because I know that this is a lot, and some people are like, "What? You know, this is great. This is the power we have."
I'll give you my email address as well. It's Mike at thepmateam.club. So thepmateam.club. Yeah.
Oh, and I wanted to ask one more question. PMA Ministry, or Private Ministry Association, and Private Membership Association. What are the difference between those two before we end?
So that they're both private membership associations, both of them. One of them just happens to be a ministry, and we take the private membership association and we put in ministerial documents that are ecclesiastically written, which make it a church. So you go in and you run your business as a church, it becomes a nonprofit. And then you're not subject to a lot of the other laws that you would be subject to, including taxation inside of a regular PMA.
Okay. I have a big machine here, so if you want to say any last words, I'm going to just mute myself till he leaves.
Well, I think we covered the PMA pretty heavily. The trust is amazing structure. And if anybody is interested in looking at a private, basically natural common law trust, it is a great way to protect your assets and your business if you want to do a business with it. And then and everybody knows it's tax season. So revocation of elections we get really busy right about now. And it's a good time to start thinking about that.
That's the other thing I was telling people is that taxes are voluntary.
Yes, it is.
They are really voluntary.
Right in the RSC code, it tells us right in there that before we fill out a 1040, we were not a taxpayer. We didn't need to, whether we made money or not. You weren't. And as soon as you put in that 1040, then you voluntarily became a taxpayer. And they give us a solution to that, and it's called a revocation of election. You remove that election that you made. In contract law, you're allowed to erase any contract or rescind any contract you ever made. And that's what we do. We go back to day one when we signed that document, we rescind it, and you are now free to not pay taxes.
Yes, absolutely. This is what Captain Matt and I were talking about. Rescinding, revoking the agreement to pay because you contracted yourself in. Everything is contracts. They have to, that's the only power they have over us is a piece of paper with your signature, your authorized representative of, and that's a whole other topic, but we have gone through letting people know when Mike was talking about how people or corporations, do you want to talk a little bit about that? And then we'll do hopefully this machine will stop, but people, people or corporations, that last bit, can you share about that?
You bet. When you go into the tax code, when you go into any of the federal codes at all, when you go look up corporation, and it starts off with people. Go look up person, and it starts off as corporation. And it's so they view us as a corporation, and that's what happens. And if you want to go back a little further, our birth certificate and our social security number also made us into a corporation. It's basically it's a spot for them to take when you're born. They basically they attach you for the rest of your life. They actually attach you for the rest of your life earnings and future earnings, and that's been given out as a debt. So it's pretty amazing when you can follow this rabbit hole for forever to find more and more things out about what our government has done to us and what they do to us on a consistent day-by-day basis.
Yeah, the game they've played on us is incredible. Like it's like, oh my gosh, like when I look at it and when I finally figured it out, I was like, wow, they have really done a number on the people here. And if all of us really understood our power, game over for them. It would be done.
I agree with 100%. I've got a friend of mine that is working on basically the only thing we can really do, I think, to help our country from this point forward, obviously people saying no, and then getting our new tribe, right? Because that's what we are, our new community of 100 million people to get up and to vote in the same direction as a group, because that 100 million people would put out everything else. We could actually run and change the course of this country with 100 million people, no problem. And we're out there, and there are 100 million people that are on our side in this country. So now we just have to assemble them. And unfortunately, what happens with business owners and people that are on our side, they're all leaders to some aspect, and leaders don't really like to be led a lot, right? And then my wife has been saying that for years. You know, you look at basically the liberal side of government and the things that they do and plan, and they're genius because they're a bunch of followers for the most part, that will do what they're told. And then they do these things they're told, and then they do them as groups as they're told, and then bigger groups and bigger groups and bigger groups. And then all of a sudden you're controlling our country. Where we don't do that, right? It's hard to basically to herd a big group of cats of conservative people, because that's like herding cats, because everybody's going their own direction. So it makes it tougher. We got a tougher deal on our side. But if we could ever get everybody together as one voice, we would rule this country the way that it needs to be, the way God intended it to be, and the way where it should be, right? That's
absolutely. So I normally do a prayer at the end, and I know yes, so let's go ahead and do that. And you guys check the link below, and yeah, if this is speaking to your heart, learn more. And if you have a business, get out of the system. You have the power to do that, and Mike and his team are here to help you. So please, let's do this together, because America has, I mean, the dream of what America is still here. It's still here in our hearts. So, and I'm wondering if this guy, Mike, would you do our prayer? I know you guys are, okay, good. I'm just going to mute myself because he's coming back. Go for it.
Yeah. Oh Lord, we just ask you, Lord, to be upon us today, and just to guide us through this mess that we've been led into, and to be able to open our hearts, our minds, our souls up enough to be able to see the truth, Lord, where it needs to be seen, and to be able to act and be as one in your name, Lord, and working with you side by side, and most of the time with you leading us, because we're not strong enough to do that on our own sometimes. So Lord, we just ask that you're with us, that you reach all these people in this audience, Lord, and you bless them, and you give them the power and strength to move forward each and every day. We love you, Lord, and we thank you so much. We pray in your name. Amen.
Awesome. And so it is. And okay, wait, am I unmuted? All right. And so it is. So Mike, thank you so much for joining me. The renegadenation.org. You guys check the link in the description, and much aloha to all of you. Talk with you soon.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, Ann.